Hello! Welcome to the screencast of how to make a stacked and side-by-side bar graph. This is Mr. Stutz coming at you live from WJIS. You'll notice that today we're going to be making a graph that includes more than one set of data. We're looking at a question, what types of pets do you have, that has a number of different series that we're comparing. We're looking at the types of pet, and we're not just looking at what Miss Dindorf's house has, but we're also looking at what Miss Medina's house has, Mr. Stutz's house, and Mrs. Wright's house, or Miss Wright's house, sorry. So all of a sudden, instead of comparing just one bit of data with how many numbers there are, I've got to compare it against 4 different sets of data. So the way to do this best is by using a stacked or side-by-side bar graph, which is easy enough to make when you remember that in order to make a graph with numbers, all you do is you have the table of values, highlight what it is that you're going to use, and then go ahead and click on the Charts button. You'll notice again you get the very same choices as before, some of which will be better than others. This is our bar graph. This is our stacked bar graph. The bar graph choices up here will automatically, if you're dealing with more than one series, make a side-by-side bar graph for you. So let's check that one out first. If we click on that bar graph, you'll notice that what pops up, there we go, had to wait for it there, is a side-by-side bar graph where you see Miss Dindorf's data is all represented in blue, Miss Medina's data is all represented in green, Mr. Stutz's data is all represented in yellow, and Miss Wright's data is all represented in red. So you can get an idea of the relative sizes of each class against each other in terms of dogs, that's cats, birds, fish, reptiles, hamsters. We haven't obviously changed any of these categories, right? If I wanted to, I can go and fix the steps as I would normally, right? Maybe make it, I don't know, if I'm doing 9, maybe do 3 steps, right? So I've got some data there. I could do 9 steps. There we go. Obviously, I'd want to put all the labels on here, label every one category so that you can see each of them. But you'll notice that puts up a nice side-by-side bar graph. Now, one of the cool things about working with the spreadsheet programs like this is if I didn't want to compare each type of animal and each house, I can go switch it the other way around so I can look at what each house has in terms of each type of animal. You come right up to the graph, and on this switcher here, you click it, and all of a sudden, I can see now, according to my house, Miss Dindorf, you can see the relative sizes of dogs, cats, birds, fish, reptiles, hamsters, rabbits, horse, other. So now I can look at each house individually and see what they have there. Okay, you'll notice that some of the pictures are repeated. Some of the numbers are some of the colors are repeated. You can go through and change that as you would with any graph. So that's your side-by-side bar graph. And some of the data is going to be better to show in a side-by-side, and some of it is going to be better to show in a stacked. If you want to make this data into a stacked bar graph, you don't need to reinvent the wheel and start all over. All you need to do is come over here to this chart button and pick the stacked bar graph. Now all of a sudden I can see each advisory or each house group with the relative sizes of the different animals. Here's dogs. You can see the blue across for each of them. Cats, birds. These 2 houses don't even have any birds. Mr. Stutz's, oh, Mrs. Wright doesn't either. All right, but there you can then look at the relative sizes of the different creatures in there. And again, if I wanted to switch it the other way around, I go up to my chart, click on this little bar, and now all of a sudden I've got a stacked bar graph that shows out of all of the dogs, this is how many are in Miss Dindorf's, Miss Medina's, Mr. Stutz, and Miss Wright. It's easy to see right away which house has the most dogs. Yeah, Mr. Stutz. Woohoo! I win. So that's how you quickly make a side-by-side and stacked bar graph. Remember, all you're going to do is highlight all of your data, choose charts, and then pick either the bar graph, which will make a side-by-side bar graph, or the stacked, which will make a stacked bar graph. After that, the manipulation of the data is up to you. Remember that every chart needs to have a title. Before you hand it in, you need to have each axis labeled, a legend if necessary, and if your teacher wants you to, or if you think it makes the interpretation a little bit easier, you'd want to make sure that you have the value for each series on here. Okay? Remember, you can put the value labels by clicking on series, value labels. Sometimes with some of these stacked graphs, that's not as important, but you can do it. Hope this helps. Please see your teacher if you got other questions. It was a pleasure talking with you this morning. Thank you, and goodbye.